Ethan Cole had learned to wake up before the world demanded anything from him, because by the time the sun rose, everyone else would already be taking something away. His alarm rang at 4:45 a.m., but most days he was already awake, staring at the ceiling of his small apartment, listening to the slow breathing of his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, from the next room. That sound, soft, steady, innocent, was the only reason he still got up. He moved quietly, careful not to wake her, packing her lunch with the same precision he used at work, folding a handwritten note inside the paper bag like he did every morning. Daddy loves you more than yesterday. By 6:30, he was on the bus, tie loosened, shoulders heavy, already exhausted before the day had begun. The city rushed past him, loud and uncaring, just like the office he was headed toward. Ethan worked as a senior operations analyst at one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the city, but the title meant nothing. What mattered was who sat in the corner office, Miranda Hale. His boss, Miranda, was brilliant, ruthless, and impossible to please. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her silence was sharper than shouting, her raised eyebrow more terrifying than any insult. To her, deadlines were sacred, mistakes unforgivable, and personal problems irrelevant. Ethan had watched colleagues burn out, resign, or break down in bathroom stalls, but he stayed. He always stayed. Because Lily needed school fees. Because rent didn't care about emotional exhaustion. Because being a single dad didn't allow him the luxury of quitting. That morning, Miranda called him into her office before he'd even taken his first sip of coffee. "You're late," she said without looking up. "It's 8:01, Ethan replied quietly. "My meeting started at 8. I was assigned the inventory audit, and you failed to anticipate my needs," she cut in, finally lifting her eyes. Cold. Assessing. That's not leadership material. Something inside him tightened. He wanted to say I worked until midnight. He wanted to say my daughter had a fever. He wanted to say I'm tired. But instead, he nodded, "Yes, Ms. Hale." The day spiraled downward from there. Emails flagged as urgent. Reports rejected without explanation. A presentation Miranda took credit for in front of the board, barely glancing his way. By evening, Ethan sat at his desk long after the lights dimmed, staring at a photo of Lily taped to his monitor. His phone buzzed, the daycare reminder, "Late pickup fee applied." "I'm sorry, baby," he whispered to the screen. That night, after Lily fell asleep on the couch waiting for him, Ethan sat in the dark and realized something terrifying. He had nothing left to give. Not to his job. Not to himself. Not even to the woman who demanded everything from him without ever seeing the man beneath the work. The next morning, he typed his resignation letter. He didn't send it yet. But for the first time in years, he felt a strange sense of peace just knowing it was there. And then, everything changed. Backhand index pointing right. If this story already has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. These stories don't just entertain, they remind us why hope still matters. The kiss didn't echo through the office the way dramatic moments do in movies. There was no music, no applause, no sudden clarity about the future. Instead, there was silence, thick, uncertain, and heavy with everything that had been left unsaid for years. Ethan walked out of the building that night with his coat unbuttoned and his thoughts unraveling faster than the city lights passing by. Miranda Hale had kissed him, yes, but what shook him more was the apology behind it. An apology no one had ever offered him before. At home, Lily was already asleep, her small backpack resting by the door for the school event he'd promised not to miss. Ethan sat beside her bed longer than usual, watching her chest rise and fall, reminding himself why he'd survived days that felt impossible. For the first time in a long while, his exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was emotional. The kiss had cracked open something he'd carefully sealed shut, the idea that he deserved more than survival. The next morning, the office buzzed with its usual urgency, but something had shifted. Miranda didn't summon him immediately. She didn't correct him publicly or rewrite his reports in red. Instead, she sent a short message, "Join me for lunch." No agenda. Ethan stared at the screen for a long moment before replying with a simple, okay. Lunch wasn't in the executive dining room. It was at a quiet cafe across the street, a place Ethan had passed 100 times but never entered. Miranda arrived without her usual sharp blazer, her hair loose, her posture less guarded. For the first time, she looked like a woman instead of a title. I didn't sleep much, she admitted as they Saturday. Neither did I, Ethan replied honestly. She didn't rush into explanations. She didn't justify herself. She told him the truth, about building walls so high she forgot how to let people in, about mistaking control for strength, about seeing him every day and never realizing how much weight he carried until she almost broke him. Ethan listened, not as an employee, but as a man finally being spoken to as an equal. I won't ask you to stay, Miranda said quietly. If you want to leave, I'll understand. That was the moment Ethan realized the power had shifted, not in the office, but inside him. For years, he had been trapped by fear, fear of instability, fear of failing Lily, fear of being alone. But now, for the first time, the choice was his. I'm not staying because of the kiss, he said. And I'm not staying because I'm afraid anymore. Miranda nodded, bracing herself. I'll stay, he continued, if things change. Real boundaries. Respect. Time for my daughter. And honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. She didn't hesitate. Done. Change didn't happen overnight, but it was real. Ethan left on time. He attended Lily's school events. He laughed more. Miranda learned how to lead without crushing the people who stood beside her. Their connection grew slowly, carefully, built on conversations, shared coffee, and moments that felt earned instead of stolen. Months later, at Lily's school fair, Ethan spotted Miranda standing awkwardly near the entrance, holding a stuffed toy like she wasn't sure where her hands belonged. Lily ran up to her without hesitation. Your daddy's friend, she declared. Miranda smiled, softer than Ethan had ever seen her smile. I hope so. Watching them together, Ethan felt something settle in his chest, not relief, not excitement, but peace. He hadn't been saved. He had been seen. And sometimes, that makes all the difference. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan realized something profound. The kiss hadn't changed his heart, it reminded him he still had one. Sparkles, if this story moved you even a little, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. More powerful stories are coming, stories about resilience, love, and second chances. Your support helps keep them alive. The kiss no one saw coming. Miranda Hale was used to control. Control over meetings, over markets, over people. What she wasn't used to was the way her chest tightened when Ethan didn't respond to her criticism the next day. No apology. No explanation. Just calm. Detached. Professional. It unsettled her more than anger ever could. When she called him into her office again, she expected resistance. What she got was resignation, not spoken, but written all over his posture. I'm submitting the quarterly revisions by noon, Ethan said evenly. After that, I'll need to leave on time. Miranda blinked. Excuse me? My daughter has a school event. Silence filled the room. For the first time, Miranda saw him, really saw him. The dark circles under his eyes. The way his hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from fatigue. This wasn't laziness. This wasn't incompetence. This was a man carrying too much alone. Ethan, she said softly, surprising herself, sit down. He hesitated, then did. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked. He laughed, a tired, hollow sound. Because you don't hire excuses. You hire results. That hit her harder than any accusation. Miranda had built her empire by cutting emotion out of every decision, including her own life. But standing in front of her now was a man who had sacrificed everything, and she had taken it without noticing. That evening, the building emptied, but Miranda stayed. So did Ethan. They talked, really talked, for the first time. About Lily. About losing his wife. About how exhaustion becomes invisible when you're strong for too long. Miranda listened, her armor cracking piece by piece, and then, in a moment neither of them planned, she stepped closer. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For all of it." Before Ethan could respond, she leaned forward and kissed him, not passionately, not impulsively, but gently, like an apology wrapped in courage. Ethan froze. That kiss didn't erase the past. It didn't fix everything. But it changed something inside him. It reminded him that he was still seen. Still human. Still worthy of care. When he pulled back, his voice shook. "I don't need saving." "I know," Miranda said. "But maybe, you don't have to do everything alone anymore." Ethan never submitted the resignation letter, but this time, he stayed by choice, not because he was tired, but because his heart had finally been acknowledged.